What is up, people? Dunna here, and today we are talking about the Moza Air 2 motorized gimbal. And not only are we going to cover pretty much everything about this amazing gimbal, but we're also going to be giving one away, so make sure to subscribe to the channel and stick around to the end of the video to find out how you can win one of these. Okay, so there's a lot to cover about this gimbal, so I reached out to you guys on Twitter to find out what was most important, and I've separated this into 4 categories based on your responses. And I'll also be showing you guys some test footage from the use of the gimbal. Let's kick things off with the basics. The Moza Air 2 is $599 US for the basic package, and I stress that because there's some confusion on YouTube about what comes in the $600 version. It's basically just the gimbal with some cables and everything that you need to get your camera set up on there. It does not come with the follow focus module, and it does not come with any kind of special case. One of the big points about this gimbal is that it weighs 3.5 pounds or 1.9 kilograms, but it carries up to 9 pounds, which is 4.2 kilograms. Now, it is a little bit bigger than some of the other ones that you might see on the market, but again, that payload is huge. For controls, it has a joystick, it has a function wheel, it has a trigger button, and it has some other functions on the back that we'll get into. It has a 3/8 accessory thread on the front, but also comes with a 1/4 inch adapter so that you could hook up something like a monitor or a microphone in the front if you wanted to. There are tripod threads on the bottom for 3/8 of an inch and 1/4 inch. The quick release comes with Manfrotto compatible plates, so if you're already using Manfrotto video heads, you're gonna be good. And it comes with this extended handle that turns itself into a little tripod that's super handy for balancing. Okay, on to ergonomics and build. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. This is a bigger gimbal than a lot of the other gimbals that are out there. If you're used to something like the Zhiyun Weeble Lab or even the Moza Air 1, the original version of this, you're gonna be used to a significantly smaller build, and this is gonna be a lot to hold on to. That being said, it does feel good in the hands because there's a lot to hold on to. The only catch there is that it's a little bit heavier. In the back, it's got a 45-degree motor slant, so the motor doesn't cover your back screen of your camera. This is something that's becoming more and more common amongst these newer gimbals because the first generation of all of them were really annoying that you couldn't see the back of the screen. The handle feels decent, and it has a groove on the front with a textured material, so it's nice and easy to hold on to. And that handle is actually also a clever opening mechanism, and the front of the handle pops off, revealing the batteries. Now, this is really cool because you can take out the batteries, put them in the charger, and let them charge up without having to take the whole thing apart like a lot of other ones. You have to unscrew them from the bottom or take off the whole handle. The downside to this way is that nothing comes apart, so when you want to go to store it, it's this. This is what you're storing. There's no way to make it any smaller. It's not easy to throw in a backpack or anything like that. Basically, what you see is what you get. If you want more support and other ways to carry this gimbal, you can try a handle accessory like this one from DigitalFoto, which we're also giving away one of these with the Moza Air that we're giving away in this video. So again, make sure to stick around to the end for info. This specific handle is also really nice because it has all these extra thread holes, so you can add all sorts of different accessories to it, which is something that the Moza Air 2 is lacking. This handle connects right onto the center column, and it gives you that underslung mode if you want it, which we're starting to see on a lot of newer gimbals nowadays. Overall, the build and the ergonomics are decent, and the biggest issue is just that it's pretty big, so you'll get tired and it's a little bit more hard to store. Moving on to setup time and ease of use. Let's set this thing up. I've got a Sony a6500 here and the Sony 18-105G lens. It's a fairly light combination. I've got a plate, I've got the camera, I've got the gimbal. Let's see how long this takes. Attach the plate to the camera. Now that's the tilt axis. And then the roll axis. And the pan axis. All right, boot it up. And that's it. Now, one of the cool things that you can do once you have it all balanced is you can actually auto-calibrate it. They call it auto-tune, but I don't mean like this kind. Basically, if you hold down the function button it'll start to wiggle the camera on each axis, and it's deciding how heavy your camera is, and it's calibrating the motors. Now there are a couple of things about this that I really like, and the first thing is the mounting plate. There are two levels to it. So the first level is your Manfrotto plate, and that slides in and it locks into the same place every time. Then there's a plate below that that slides back and forth to do your balancing. Now what this means is that you don't have to rebalance every time you want to slide the camera out. Because the camera locks into the exact same place every time, you can just slide the camera out and be sure that when you put it back, it locks into the same place. Another thing that I really like about the usability of this is the LCD screen that's built into the back of the controller. Basically what this means is that you don't need an app to calibrate or control or change any of the functions at all. This is something that in a lot of other gimbals, a lot of older gimbals, you constantly had to connect to the app to do your calibrations and to change how your follow modes worked and all of that kind of stuff. Everything can be done right from the screen here. It's pretty awesome. The only exception to that is to set up like time-lapse functions and that kind of stuff. I think you still need to set that up from the app. But as far as how fast your motors work and how heavy your camera is and calibrating and all that kind of stuff, it can be all done right from the LCD screen with the controls built into the handle. Accessing the different modes that you can use on this is a little bit different than you might be used to from some other gimbals, but I do think that it's really quite intuitive once you learn it. The tilt, roll, and pan motors can all be put into follow mode or lock mode individually, so you can build your own modes. The way you do that is by clicking in on the joystick on the back. So if I click once, it toggles the pan. If I click twice, it does the roll. And if I click 3 times, it does the tilt. So if you want any combination of those either being locked or being in follow mode, you can just build it yourself. One little thing that I didn't mention before that's kind of cool is that you can lock the roll motor while you're balancing. That can be really handy, or when you're just carrying it around, or if you want to put it away, it's nice to be able to lock that into position so that it's not swinging around all over the place. Why they didn't put that on the other one as well, I'm not really sure, but it's cool to have it on the one. Now, this gimbal does come with a bunch of different cables to hook up a bunch of different types of cameras, and it's supposed to be able to connect to them and do all sorts of things. Using my A6500, I had a ton of trouble trying to get it to do what it said it was supposed to do. You're supposed to be able to set up the charging for the camera, so it'll actually use the batteries from the gimbal to charge the camera. I did manage to get that to work most of the time. You're supposed to be able to control the camera, but with Sony cameras, there seems to be limited abilities for that. I think on Canon cameras, you can set your ISO, your aperture, and your shutter speed, but in the Sony ones, I don't think that's available. It seemed to be able to read them, but not actually change any of them. You're supposed to be able to start and stop recording or hit the shutter if you're taking photos. I got that to work about 20% of the time. It would turn on and then turn off, and then when I would go to record the next time, it just wouldn't work. So I'm not 100% sure why that would be happening, but maybe if you're using Canon cameras or something that they're a little bit more compatible with, it could work well. But the big question is it smooth? Can you get them smooth, buttery, cinematic shots with it? And the answer is absolutely. Again, because the motors are so powerful, it can give you a really, really smooth shot. It's not fighting against the camera at all, especially with using like APS-C mirrorless or even the full frame mirrorless. And I think you can get away with some really, really big lenses on it, and you shouldn't have any kind of problem with it. I did some test shots with it walking and also running. I did that both with stabilization on in the camera and on the lens, as well as off, like completely no stabilization whatsoever. So you can see those here. So as you can see from a basic standpoint of gimbals just trying to give you steady shots, it does a killer job. And now for our last category, special features. What makes this stand out from a lot of the other gimbals that are out there? First and foremost, there's something called inception mode. Now this is starting to be a little bit more normal on some of the newer gimbals, but basically what it is, if you click the function button twice, you want to put it into flashlight mode, they call it, and then you can actually just use your dial and it automatically rotates the camera for you. So it's a bit more of an automatic process than in some of the other gimbals that offer a similar function. Like I mentioned before, the fact that you can kind of do everything that you need to right in the screen there instead of having to open up an app. You can individually dial in the speed of each motor based on how fast you want it to follow you. So I like to keep mine around 20. It's these nice smooth motions. If you crank it all the way up to 100, it'll follow you so quickly. If you move it back down, it'll be nice and smooth and slow. And that being said, there's also something on this gimbal called sport mode, where your pan axis basically acts like it's cranked up. It follows super quickly so you can make those whip transitions or whatever you want to do with it. That mounting plate, like I said before, is probably one of my favorite kinds. I usually add my own quick release plates to my other gimbals, but on this one, I think I just leave it. So in conclusion, if you're looking to buy a new gimbal and you need something that can handle a really heavy load, or you just want something that you know is going to give you a really stable shot, the Moza Air 2 is definitely a great choice. The biggest downside about the Moza Air 2 is just that it's big and it's a little bit heavier than some of the other gimbals that are out there. It's kind of this trade-off because you're getting all of that power. I know that I'm gonna get that steady shot. If you're interested in picking up the Moza Air 2 and you don't want to wait to see if you won one from this contest, there's a link in the description. It does support the channel without costing you any extra, so thank you in advance if you decide to go that way. Let me know down below in the comments, if you won this gimbal, what would you use it for? How would it help your workflow? If you want to win this gimbal, the Moza Air 2, as well as the Terminator Air 2 handle, make sure to go down to the description. There's a link there that you can follow. Follow the instructions there. Remember to subscribe to this channel because this isn't the only gimbal that I have to give away this month. Yes, you heard that right. I'll be doing another gimbal giveaway after we're done this one, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on anything. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.